I want to tell you something that's really kind of embarrassing and something that I don't really even want to say out loud on camera. But there are moments in my marriage where I have looked at my husband dead in the face and I told him with complete conviction that I was better off without him, that I didn't need him, that he could just leave. And every single time I said it, because yes, I said it more than once, I was lying. Because the truth was that I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified of losing him. And somehow the fear, it came out of me as fire. If you've ever watched yourself become someone that you don't recognize in a relationship, someone that you don't even like, and wondered why you can't stop it, even when you see it happening, then this video is really for you. Before I give you the framework that helped me understand what was actually happening in those moments, I need to take you back into my life a little bit, because none of this started when I got married. It started when I was about 5 years old. My parents were never married. And when I was around 5, maybe 7, my dad, he used to live in North Carolina and he moved to Florida. And then my mom's sister and my brother and I, we stayed in North Carolina. And for most of my childhood, I got to see my dad maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks out of the entire year. And here's what nobody tells you about that situation as a kid. It wasn't that I just missed him. It's that I became the bridge between two people who could not understand each other, between my mom and dad. Because my mom and dad, they had this love-hate type of relationship. Sometimes they loved each other, but most of the time they hated each other. And they were not quiet about that hate at all. They would say the most hateful, explosive things to each other and about each other, to us, to their children. And because I was the closest to both of them, to both of my parents, I was the one that was caught in the middle of their relationship, their situationship, their love-hate thing. I was the one getting defensive. I was the one trying to protect both of them from each other while nobody was protecting me. I also watched my dad move to Florida and build what I felt like was a whole new family. His wife and kids and grandkids there in Florida. And as a child, all I could think was, they get all of him every single day. And I get just a few weeks a summer. And I loved my dad. I want to be really clear about that. As an adult, I understand that he was just trying to be happy, that he was just trying to have a life of his own. But as a little girl, that felt like evidence that I wasn't enough to make him stay. And on top of all that, we were poor. We lived off food stamps. We had Medicaid. We would move almost every year because we couldn't afford rent. Sometimes living at my grandparents'. And I also grew up in a town with almost no diversity. And I was one of the very few people of color. And I was extremely overweight on top of that. So by the time I was a teenager, I had already learned several things about love and about myself. I learned that love, it just leaves. I learned that if you need someone, that they might disappoint you, that they might disappear. I learned that you have to fight in order to be seen. And I learned that I was probably too much and not enough all at the exact same time. And I just didn't have the words for any of that at any of those ages or any of that time in my life. But fast forward, I enter my first real relationship and basically marry the first person that I seriously date. And I want to be honest with you. I knew before we even got married that we had some really unhealthy patterns. I knew that before we got married. And I got married anyway because I wanted it so badly. I wanted to be accepted and loved and just somebody to want me so badly. And here's what started happening. The moment that I felt like he wasn't seeing my side, the moment there was conflict or distance or disagreement, or something would just take over me, I would go from 0 to explosive, belittling him, tearing him down, cussing him out, saying things that I cannot take back. And then the moment it was over, I would be terrified. I was scared that I had gone too far, scared that he was going to leave, scared that I had just destroyed the thing that I was fighting so hard to keep. And instead of telling him that I was scared, instead of telling him any of this, I would do the exact opposite. I would tell him, I don't need you. I didn't need him. that I would be better off without him, because somewhere in me, it felt safer to push him away before he could leave me on his own. And I didn't understand any of this until I became a counselor, until I finally had the language for what my nervous system had learned to do as a child, until I discovered what I now call the attachment map. And here's what I want you to understand. What I was doing in those moments, it was not crazy. It was not a character flaw. It wasn't even me. It was a protection strategy. My nervous system learned very early that people leave, that love is unpredictable, that if you show someone you need them, you hand them the power to just devastate you. So it built a protection. My system built a protection, and that protection looked like attack before you get hurt, push before you get left, say you don't care so loudly that maybe you will actually believe it yourself. This is what I call your protection strategy inside of the attachment map. And here's the thing about protection strategy. They made complete sense when you learn them. They kept you emotionally safe as a child. The problem is your nervous system never got the memo that you grew up and became an adult. So it's still running the same protection, but in a completely different situation with a person who is not my father or your caregiver, who is not leaving, who is just having a disagreement with you. And the trigger is the doorway. It's the story your brain tells the pattern. The body's response is the alarm. And the behavior, which is the explosion, the shutdown, the pushing away, that is just the protection doing its job. So the question is it still working for you? Is that protection still working for you? Or is it costing you the connection that you actually want, that you desire, that you deserve? And when I finally started doing my own work, and I want to be honest here, I am still doing the work. I started learning what a secure person actually looks like. And secure does not mean I never get triggered. It does not mean I became a perfectly calm, zen person all of the time. That's not real. Secure means that I can catch it faster, that I can name what's happening, that I can say, okay, something just got activated in me, and this feels like that old fear. So let me not make a decision or say words that I cannot take back from this place that I am currently in. Secure means instead of telling my husband that I don't need him, I can eventually go to him and say that I'm scared. I'm scared of losing you. And I don't know how to say that without it coming out of me like fire. And that right there, that's the shift. That's the shift. It's not perfection. It's just enough self-awareness to lead yourself instead of being dragged by the pattern. And I built the attachment map because I needed it for myself. I needed a way to look at my own patterns and to understand them without shaming them and shaming myself. To see that the little girl who became her parents' emotional translator, who only got her dad a few weeks out of the year, who grew up invisible and convinced that she was too much, did the absolute best that she could with what she had. And I know you did as well. So did you. And if any part of this story, if any part of my story touched something in you, if you recognize yourself in the explosion or the fear or the pushing away, I want you to know that you're not broken. You are just patterned. And patterns can be understood. And what can be understood can be changed. And I'm building something called Secure Within, which is a complete program that's built around the attachment map method that I mentioned in this video. And if you want to be the first to know when it drops, subscribe and hit the bell and drop the word map in the comments. And I will personally send you the attachment map when it is ready. Thank you for sticking in with me on this video. Like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next.